Hi guys, in today's video I'm going to go over something really important for you, especially as we move towards Christmas. Some of you have got your mocks before Christmas, some of you have got your mocks after Christmas. That's for GCSE or A-level. I'm going to kind of talk you through some GCSE revision, but all of these points apply to A-level as well. The first thing I'm going to tell you is that you need to get everything ready before you start revising. So you need to make sure you've got a folder, you need to make sure that you've got a plastic wallet, etc. to keep all of these things in that I'm going to show you that you kind of need for your revision. So when that's done, you need to print a few things off beforehand as well to make sure that you've got everything you need. So number one is print off the section of the spec. Now, in all of the specs, whether it's GCSE or A-level, you can go onto Edexcel if you haven't been given these at school, and you can find the specification and you can download parts of it. Now, I normally print them off like this, so I'll put this one down for a second. And this is the specification. This is actually for GCSE and it's for Unit 5, which is the Human Geography. And it just goes over 2 pages. Some of them go over 1 page, some of them go on to the next page. I printed off 2 in 1, so we've got 2 pages in one because you don't really need it any bigger. And if you do this for each of your topics, if you haven't been given this by your teacher, and what I would do, first of all, is have a read through this because it's got lots and lots of key terms on, which we'll get to in a minute. But you can tick it or cross it. You can see that I've put some ticks and crosses on sections of it. There's a whole section that I know. There's a bit of a section that I really don't know. There's another bit of a section that I know bits of. So I've ticked or crossed it. You could also highlight this as well. So for each of the units that you need to revise, I would start off with this because it gives you a good overview on what you've done. Now it should link to what your notes are telling you, hopefully anyway, or what the revision book's telling you. But it'll give you a good starting point for the topic, and it will kind of like move your brain, so your brain starts getting going and starts thinking about what the topic was, because it might have been last year that you did it, etc. So I would start with this and I would have each of these printed off for each of the topics. That goes for GCSE or A-level. It's the same for A-level. They're normally 2 or 3 sides, a little bit longer for A-level, but again you can print them off 2 in 1. On your printer properties, you can change that to 2 pages, and so you can make them a bit smaller. So I'd have these for each topic. Then when you've done this for each topic, what I would then do is I would use a key term sheet. Now I do these for my students. I generally give them to them blank, so they have to fill them in. Now you can use the textbook to get these key terms. You might have been given them already. You can use the spec, and you can take the key terms from the spec and add them to the table. Now if you do this on the computer, you can obviously write in the key terms and the definitions. Now what I would do here is I would, for each topic, I would first of all go through, because for both of these I think you need to be starting on the stuff that you're not sure of rather than the stuff that you're sure of. So again, you can see I've ticked and crossed this whole topic, and I've got quite a lot of pink crosses. I've got quite a lot of green ticks as well, but I've got a lot of pink. So I can start now with defining. I would start defining these key terms that I don't really know, looking them up in the book, trying to remind myself what they are, looking them up in my notes, etc. Now, I would say for this is a really good technique, is that you start first of all by going through and just writing a very broad, brief definition of each key term, so you kind of know what it is. And then I would go back and I would start to like explain the significance of that key term, so explain it in a little more detail. So here you can see the top one says population density. So I would start off by saying population density is the measure of the population per square kilometre, because that's the general kind of definition of population density. But then I go back a bit later on when I've done that for all of them, and I'd say population density is high in some rural areas but lower in other urban and some areas. So rural, it tends to be low population density. Urban, it tends to be high. So I do that, and then what I'd do is I'd maybe like go into that a little bit more detail, and I'd give reasons for it. So I'm almost doing like a bit of extra revision for each of these. So they start off as key terms and just pure definitions, but you can enhance it and expand upon it. So I'd always start with a key term just so you know it, and then I would expand it a little bit more, like I said, to explain it, to go into it in a little bit more detail. Where possible as well, you might want to like assess it, so look at the pros and cons of it. It doesn't always work with all of these, but it does with some of them. If you get to kind of coastal management section of the coasts, and you're looking at strategic realignment I should say, or a holistic approach, you can define it, then you can explain what it is, and then you can assess the pros and cons of it. So these definitions can get quite chunky and quite meaty. So I would do them on the computer, and I would keep saving them, and I keep going back to them. But start off with the ones that are in red or pink, whatever colour it is, and then go on to the ones that you know, because there's no point wasting time in a lot of ways on stuff that you already know. So I would do that. The next thing I would do, once you've done that, you've learnt quite a lot of stuff. I know it's only AO1, it's only description, but if you've gone through the key terms and you've looked at pros and cons of it, etc., then you're kind of moving into AO2 and more assess and evaluate, etc. So you've done quite a lot of work then. Then if you want to, you can start making, I've got a little booklet here, so you can start making little key cards or little mind maps, etc. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. So you can start making some mind maps, some key terms. I've got a little one on population density here. So it's off with urban on this side, what urban, high population, migration, reasons for it, etc. Younger people live in cities, tertiary jobs, that kind of thing, whatever. And then I've put rural areas over here. This was a very brief one. I've got a whole book of these. You can use these for all of your key terms or all of your concepts or your processes. When you come to do coastal ones, they might have little images on. I would always recommend you do words and pictures and use colour, because then when you're in the exam and you come to recall this information, your brain's got a place to go to rather than all just being in like black and white. So that's what I would do. I'd start making these if you want to. You can do the kind of cue cards where you put population density and write it on the back if you want to, or you can just do little mind maps, etc. I'd use colour and I'd use images and things like that, just very basic things that you can kind of remember, and it can bring your mind back to it. And then what I do when I've got all of my knowledge and I've used my key terms and I've looked at my spec and I know what I know and I know what I don't know, is then I would start doing exam style questions. And here again, I give my students these exam style questions, which are from actually the textbook, the Edexcel textbook. They've all done them in class, but it's quite nice to go over them again and you've got them all in one place. So if you don't have this, it doesn't take too much time to go through the textbook and kind of type up all of the exam style questions, which are in like a coloured box, aren't they, on each of the pages, and you can start answering those. Again, I'd maybe tick and cross them, I'd read through them, tick the ones that you think you know and then put a cross next to the ones that you don't know, and I'd start with those. But by this point, hopefully, you've learnt quite a lot of stuff because you've gone over it with your key terms and stuff, and then you're ready to answer these. The other thing you can do is you can go onto the website, or you can use the exams that you've been given through the year, and you can answer those questions again. I would particularly be looking at, again, the ones that I didn't do too well on and the ones that I'm not sure of. And also maybe concentrate on some of the 8 markers, because they can be a little bit tricky, and look at assess. But I think I've got another video on assessing and using how the strategies to answer those 8 markers, which kind of are the same format time and time again. There's only so many questions that they can ask you, really. So that is what I would do to revise. Now, if it's A-level, it's exactly the same. You can print the spec off if it's A-level. Exactly the same. You can have your key terms exactly the same. You can make your keynotes or whatever it is, your key cards or whatever it is that you want to do, you can do that. And then you can answer your exam style questions again, either again from the textbook or from the spec. And at that point, hopefully, you know, you're doing pretty well. You can go on to your next topic. So what you've got is for each topic, you've got this amount, kind of this amount with your notes. And I will put that all together rip out some of your key cards or your mind maps and keep it in a little envelope. Maybe put a front cover on it saying what the topic is, and then you can move on to your next topic. And again, with the topics, maybe start with the topics that you're not sure of and move through those first, because what you don't want to be doing is you don't want to be running out of time when it comes to the mock or the real exam, and you don't want to be getting to those topics like coasts. Maybe you really don't like coasts, or you don't really understand a lot of the processes, can't remember all of those kind of key terms and all the things about coast. So start with that first of all, and then you've got one of these little packs for each of the topics. You're really hyper organized, it's all in little plastic wallets, etc. And you can come back to this time and time again. You can read through your key definitions, you can have a look at exam style questions, you can redo your exam style questions, you can get a friend to test you, etc. But you've got everything that you need, hopefully, to do really well in the mocks, which means that you'll do really well in the exam. So good luck in your mocks whenever they are, and make sure that you like and subscribe. And a lot of this is on my Instagram account, which is JC Jog Sport as well. So good luck, guys. See you later.